Hello and welcome to the live stream. I am joining you today from a wonderfully cloudy and miserable London. So my apologies to everybody. If you happen to be in this part of the country, we managed yesterday, which was Greek Easter, by the way. So, Χρόνια πολλά to everybody who was celebrating Greek Easter yesterday. We managed to do a half day without rain, and that worked out okay. However, currently we're back to our normal schedule, which means rain and cold and everything else. I think it might be, I don't know, what, 12 degrees outside. So you might have at some point during our live stream today the appearance of some of my cats coming in from the outside, all wet, kind of sloshing backwards and forwards in front of the computer. So once again, hi everybody. Awesome to see some people connected live. If you want to communicate with me, you can put some messages on the chat that you see normally on the right-hand side of your screen. I will be responding to some of the messages that people have shared on the Google form that I had circulated earlier on. So we are going to have a packed event with a lot of very useful information where we talk about all things SQE. Yes, quite a lot of you are already booked in for the SQE in July. If you're currently on the stream and you're due to see this in July, give us like a thumbs up or some sort of emoticon, and we can celebrate this together. From the people who were doing the form and sending us some responses there, about half of them are taking the SQE now in July, and also half of them are taking the SQE again. So in case you are of that crowd that has already decided the SQE and you're looking to attempt it again and you're looking to up your preparation, I think it's going to be useful to have you on this stream today. So feel free to share your experience if you've already started the SQE and unfortunately you need to do this again. Now, we're going to be talking about things that are relevant to a variety of people who are thinking about the SQE and want to know a little bit more, people who are booked in for the July sitting, people who are thinking to book for the next sitting that is coming up later in the year. If you're watching this on the replay, that is going to be available on demand for whenever you want to watch it, I'm going to put chapters so you can jump straight to the area that discusses the thing that is more relevant to you. So remember that if you watch on the replay, you don't need to watch the whole stream sequentially, but you can just jump to the chapter that discusses the topic that is straight on interesting for you. At this point, I would like to thank our sponsors, Revise SQE. Now, I was thinking of a way that I could do it in a way that it doesn't look too cringy. And I thought, there's no point in trying. I might as well do it in the cringiest way. So our friends from Revise SQE are sponsoring this stream and are making this available. So I wanted to say thank you. And there's going to be more information on their products and their books a little bit later on in the stream. Okay, now, where shall we start? I think probably the best place to start, considering that many of the people who responded in the form that I had made available are already well aware of the SQE and the process. I think a good point to start would be to talk about preparation and to talk about the best possible strategies that we can use to prepare effectively for both parts of SQE, SQE1 and SQE2. But if we're thinking about the MCQs, perhaps because that's the relevant one that's coming up here in July, maybe we can start at that point. Now, as with every exam, the best way to prepare is to gain the highest amount of familiarity with what the exam has been like on previous occasions. Now, this is a point where we have a little bit of difficulty with the SQE because they don't publish their past exam papers. I've actually got a video coming up where I'm complaining about this. Not having access to the past exam papers, I think, undermines your preparation. If they were actually publishing a sample, we don't need to have the whole lot, but if they were just publishing one of the SQE sittings and we could see all of the questions that they had in the MCQs, or we could see the material that they used for SQE2, we would get a real appreciation of what the exam is like. And as we're discussing in the context of study, if any of you are still at university or you're recent graduates, you will remember your lecture saying that the best way to prepare is to go through your past exam papers. Now, unfortunately, the SRA, who is a regulator for this, has decided not to make the past papers available. I think the reason is practical, that if they were releasing the multiple choice questions, for instance, they would need to be creating new ones all the time, and that's a very laborious process. So they're probably keeping down. And if anybody from the SRA is listening to this, I stand by it. So yes, I'm complaining and I know what I'm doing. The system is saving costs for itself by imposing costs on the users of the service. So perhaps this is something that we can debate later on a little bit. But coming back to the point of preparation, how can you effectively prepare if you don't have access to a great deal or even any past exam papers that adequately describe the exam? Well, the only thing you can do is get hold of resources that explain how this exam is taking place. And here we have a little bit of a distinction between what is happening for people who are taking preparation courses and people who don't. We've got a comment in the chat saying that our audio is very good. Now, if that is the case for the then maybe we can try and do something to fix this. Okay. Hang on a second. Maybe I know what the problem is. Okay. So thank you for pointing this out. I think we should be good right now. So now I think we were having a little bit of a feedback for something else that was going on in the background. So if the audio has improved, give us a thumbs back or let me know. And otherwise, I can try some other things to try and fix it. So hopefully now this is okay for everybody. Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the issue of preparation, how can you effectively prepare when you don't have good access to official past exam papers? Now, the best way to do this, if you are not yet signed on to a preparation course, or you haven't yet bought material and resources, is to go through. Yes, thank you very much, Danny. Thank you. Sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't. But I think our friends at YouTube are doing their best to keep things going. But thank you very much for the feedback. So the best way to prepare before you spend any money, because the idea is to get the maximum amount of support as quickly as possible before you have to go out and start spending money. Go through everything that is available online. And there is a great deal of material available online, both from official and non-official sources. For example, the SRA itself on its own website publishes a great deal of information about the exams themselves and gives you examples and example questions and example material for the various impressions of this exam. So you're going to have questions that are on the examples of the MCQs that they use. You're going to have some material for SQE2, both the oral and the written parts. So go through all this material very carefully. When I was helping people prepare for this exam, we were making like a folder, and every folder had mocks from this, in a subfolder, mocks from this source, mocks from the SRA, mocks from the prep schools, mocks from somebody else. Anything you can find, download when you find it, because it could be that you won't find it again in the future. Keep it in a folder and make sure that you have it there secure for you to attempt as you're going through your material. And you might need to attempt these questions multiple times. So there will be a great deal of information out there. Beyond what the SRA is making available to you, you're going to have information from the various prep schools, because they're asking you to pay a great deal of money to sign on. In order to entice you to do this, they make available samples of their work. So go through absolutely everything you can find that is not behind the paywall and attempt those exercises. This is going to be essential, and it's going to give you an outside impression without spending a penny of what it is that you have to face and what it is that you're trying to prepare for. Now, once we have overcome this, so once we've come to the end of the things that you can find for free, then you will have a better idea of what's happening, and you will be in a position to make choices as to where to spend money. Here we have a choice. Some people are recent graduates from a law degree. So here they have been engaged with the study of the law. They've gone through a syllabus in the traditional law degree, if it's done in this jurisdiction, that covers the majority of the content that the SQE seeks to examine. Now, little asterisk over there, not everything. Because remember, if you're a law student, the law syllabus for undergraduate law students covers some of the content, most of the FLK that is relevant to SQE1, but does not cover the active lawyer skills that are examined in SQE2. That's why I tell my students that perhaps for the first part of the exam, what we've done together in our undergraduate interaction might be enough, but there's a good chance that it won't be enough for SQE2. Because what we do at SQE2 is something that is covered by the LPC, what was the legal practice course that people were taking after they finished their undergraduate as they were seeking to progress and become solicitors. Now, if you are a recent graduate, you may have covered the majority of the FLK. So you might be in a better position to attempt SQE1 without needing structured support and tuition. What you need, therefore, is materials that familiarize you with the exam and help you prepare for this. Now, here, on this particular point, we have a bit of an issue because if you're looking for books, so if you are like a little bit like me, that feels a little more confident dealing with a hard copy resource as you're preparing for stuff, you might find it tricky just to deal with the electronic editions of everything. If you're looking for physical books, then you might find that there isn't a great deal of resource available that is priced appropriately. Oxford University Press, for instance, had put together a collection that was SQE relevant, which was effectively their LPC books a little bit revamped. And they put a package, but they were selling that package for £450. And I think they still do, to be honest. Some of the other schools that run preparation course, like the University of Law, that used to be the College of Law, BPP, they also make available retail the sets of guidebooks that they prepare. But again, these are going to set you back something like £350 or £400 or £450. This is an enormous spend just for resource. This is why, and here I'm going to display this again, this is why I ended up using those. And I'm not messing with you guys. The idea is not to simply talk about this product because they're the sponsors of our live stream today. It's because genuinely I have found them useful. Now, if you have already gone through an undergraduate law degree, or you've gone through study in a different jurisdiction that is a common law jurisdiction, or in fact, you've been working in legal practice, not as a solicitor, but you've been working in legal practice for quite a while. And I know that a few of you here today, a few of the people that are participants in my Facebook group, a few of the people in my newsletter, they are actually working in law firms or they're working in the legal departments of businesses. These people are already familiar with the content of the law. So they don't need to read absolutely everything from the very beginning till the very end. What they do need is an accessible resource at a volume that they can actually handle. So the benefit of the revised SQE titles is that they cover what you absolutely need, but they have it packaged in a resource that is actually manageable. And I will come back to this when we talk about a sort of sequence of study and preparation, how long you should spend going through those books as you're working your way up towards the exam. what we found with the colleagues that I was working with to prepare for the exam is that if you're familiar with the content, because you have a recent degree, because you are in legal practice at the moment, if you get the entire resource, these 450-pound packages, or you just order from Amazon or something, the textbooks themselves, you're going to end up with a variety of textbooks that are about this thick. And they're going to be impossible to navigate. A lot of the undergraduate textbooks are not suitable for the SQE, even though they talk about the relevant content. And I've had this discussion with the various publishers that come and meet me, and we discuss resources and what the candidates need. And I keep telling them that what people need for the SQE is much less intense than what they need for an undergraduate law degree. So if you go and pick up your average textbook, is going to be like a very thick volume that you're going to need to sift through in order to get to the relevant content. You don't have the time, and you don't really want to go through this hassle. So finding titles that are shorter and precisely designed with the SQE in mind might be the way to do it. And if you are already somewhere comfortable with the content, this is what I would recommend you do. Now, not everybody meets this description. So, by the way, if you don't mind telling us in the chat whether you are a recent graduate or not, that would be really helpful, so we get a feel of what sort of people we have listening to this. If you're listening to this on the replay, again, put a message down in the comments to tell us whether you're a recent graduate attempting the SQE, or you're currently working in the legal domain, or you intend to do or you're studying from scratch, or you're studying from a different jurisdiction. That's going to be very helpful for everybody to sort of benchmark where they're at. If you are in need of more knowledge, and if you're in need of more support to go through the substantive legal content to meet the FLK, then you're going to need some tuition. Now you're having a wide variety of available options, which makes things very difficult, to be honest with you. Because if you're looking for an undergraduate law degree, you have loads of options, but everybody's offering the same thing. Because the content of an undergraduate law degree is consistent and has been consistent for quite a long while. If you're looking for SQE prep, you've got a wide array of primarily online providers, and then you have a few campus-based providers that are offering a bundle of SQE preparation with the law masters. Now, what you will do if you choose this option, and in fact, quite a lot of my undergraduate law students that are graduating now are moving on to do these LLM SQE packages. What you will get if you pick the package is that you will basically do all your SQE prep with the help of tuition, but you will be offered the opportunity to do a dissertation at the end, which inputs the sort of research skills and research elements, which then allows you to graduate with something that also says a master's law degree. So the content of the LLM SQE packages isn't really different from the SQE prep itself. The only difference is that they stick you with a dissertation option at the end, which, to be honest with you, it's not a bad idea. If you can spend an entire year in full-time study or 2 years in the part-time program, and you can fund all this because it's quite expensive, it might actually be a good idea to come out with an academic qualification, the LLM, on top of what you did for your SQE prep. If this is not what you're after, and you cannot afford this, or you cannot devote the time, and the only thing you're interested in is SQE preparation, then you will have to look for support from the primarily online providers that offer you a package of material, a lot of mock and practice questions, and some opportunity for tuition and support. Now, as we said, getting hold of good mocks is absolutely essential. The revised SQE titles also have 2 books that are full of mocks that are covering FLK1 and FLK2. So in addition to the mock questions that you're getting together with your traditional titles, you're going to get 2 books that are specifically devoted to this. But you may want additional support for various other types of mocks that go beyond the multiple choice questions themselves. And especially as we're moving into the domain of SQE2, you might need additional information as to how to handle that part of the exam. So there's a wide array of online providers that are going to assist you with this. I am in discussions with some of them to get to know their content. When I've discussed enough and I'm confident enough about what they offer, then I make a video about this. So if you go through the other videos that I've published recently, you're going to see which schools that I've been talking to and what I have to say about their product. I would pick somebody who looks legitimate in the sense that they've been doing it for a while and they're happy to securely identify themselves, their offering, their location, their corporate information. They can provide testimonials about who has been using them before. If you are thinking of hooking up with somebody who doesn't actually provide a great deal of upfront information about what they do, how they do it, why they do it, who they are, then I would be a little bit cautious. If you want something that is a little bit more remote and it doesn't have the interaction of a human tutor at some point in your preparation process, then you can also consider the support of AI and AI tools. I mean, there are some wonderful things that are coming out. We have a sponsorship sorry, it's not a sponsor. We have an opportunity for an affiliate link that gives you a discount for one of these AI tools. So if you go through the rest of my videos, you're going to find information on that one. And also I share this information on the Facebook group. Having an AI tutor that generates multiple choice questions for you and gives you feedback on your performance on those might be a cost-effective solution in getting these things done effectively. Now, I know because I've been trying this myself. I've used ChatGPT to generate multiple choice questions for me and then offer explanatory feedback. So I generate this with the help of AI, then I review them, I offer additional information. This is what I use to generate the newsletter questions that you're getting every Monday. By the way, if you're not already members of my newsletter, I've put this information in the chat, and I'm also going to put how to register on it down in the description. So using whatever you have available, starting from the things that are free, right? Because the idea is not to go shoveling money around. You're already paying so much money for the SQE. Starting from the things that are already free and available, and then scaling up your preparation by getting appropriate resources and the help of anything, including new AI tools, will be what you need to do in order to bring yourself to the level that you're confident to attempt the exam. Now, one of the comments in the chat mentions being qualified in another jurisdiction, and that's an excellent point. And I thank you for reminding me, because I wanted to talk about this. What happens if you're already qualified in another jurisdiction? Well, this presents you with a series of advantages. If you're already a lawyer in another jurisdiction, then you know the practical, real-life parts of legal practice that are going to be of enormous help when you're sitting SQE2. So when we get to the point that you have to attempt the second part of the SQE that is based on oral and written practical skills that the lawyer is expected to be able, a solicitor is expected to be able to demonstrate on day one of their practice, what you have been doing in your own jurisdiction is going to be fantastic help. Of course, you need to adjust to the requirements here and the rules here and the knowledge content that goes with it. But the mentality of legal practice is common across a great variety of jurisdictions. And that is the reason why the SRA can offer you exemptions if you are already registered and active overseas. So at the beginning, when they introduced the SQE, a lot of people were utterly panicking about this and thinking, hang on, if I'm already qualified in another jurisdiction, do I really need to go through absolutely everything? So what's the deal? Why am I going to have to go through everything that somebody is examined on straight out of law school, even though I'm already qualified over there and I've been doing this stuff for years? In response to this, the SRA had said that they're going to think about exemptions. Now that we're a few years into the process, they have in fact created a great deal of exemptions. So what will happen is that if you're a qualified lawyer, this means that you're a professional with a legal qualification that gives you rights to practice in another jurisdiction, or if you're a barrister for that matter. So it could be that you have the rights to practice in one of the countries within the UK, or you have rights to practice overseas, then you will be able to apply for exemptions from the SRA. The exemptions are mostly for SQE2, because what they're recognizing is the fact that if you're already a practicing lawyer, you know how to practice law. And this is the bulk of the SQE2 information. So they will be happy to exempt you from SQE2. They're less keen to exempt you from SQE1, which is the substantive legal content that comes with all the functioning legal knowledge that people would get in a law school here. Now, it is still possible, but the SRA says if you're seeking exemption from SQE1, you need to contact them and negotiate this directly. If you're seeking from exemption from SQE2, there are already predetermined pathways that will allow you to get that exemption. For instance, if you are from Greece, like myself, and you are δικηγόρος in Greece, which means that you are a practicing lawyer in one of the bars in the towns in Greece, you can apply for what they call an individual SQE2 exemption. You will need to provide a little bit of paperwork, obviously. So you need evidence of your professional qualification. This might be an admission certificate or a certificate of good standing. You will need a reference that validates the fact that you've been working for at least 6 months post-qualification as a Greek lawyer. And you will also need to provide proof of your academic and professional qualifications. You might get a certificate of good standing from your local bar that you need to send them. The same process if you're a French avocat, the same process if you're an attorney in the United States. So if you are already qualified to practice overseas, then the number one thing you should think about and examine is whether you qualify from any exemptions from the SQE. This is why I normally have a lot of discussions with my postgraduate students, because these are people who come to the UK for a year for their master's degree, and they're usually qualified in the home jurisdiction. When we discuss the SQE and we discuss the improvements or what this might mean for your professional practice and your career, then we quickly get to the discussion of as to whether they qualify from exemptions or not. So absolutely, this is something that you should consider if you're a lawyer from overseas. And the SRA, to hear no complaints, they have improved the information that they've got on the website, and they're quite responsive when people are contacting them to ask them about exemptions and the possibility of exemptions. Now, on a slightly different topic but related, what happens if you would like to request reasonable adjustments? Now, reasonable adjustments is what they call more time or more support if you have something that prevents you performing in the same way as the other candidates in the exam. For instance, you might need additional time. So you might need soundproofing. You might need visual aids. So this is something that's been set in place to support people with disabilities, that they don't face discrimination when sitting this exam. Because clearly, to be honest with you guys, from a pedagogical point of view, this exam is gonna fit everything through the same pattern and accept them to survive, which isn't really what we do at universities. But that is a discussion for another day. we can do a live stream specifically on how unfair this is. But if you already have a registered disability, which would entitle you in a university setting for a separate exam room or a quiet room or visual aids or hard copy material or additional time, then the SRA will offer you the same opportunity in the context of the SQE assessments. But obviously, you need to ask for it in advance. So if you are booking, remember this, if you are booking your assessment seats, if you are planning to ask for reasonable adjustments, you need to contact them and do this directly. So don't book your seat and then wait to ask them for reasonable adjustment. There's a very different pathway to book your seats if you have already a disability that you need to communicate to the SRA. So just keep that in mind, because the booking process is an extremely anxious and messed up process already. If you want to ask for reasonable adjustments, then there's a different way that you're going to approach this. Okay, now let's try and address some of the questions that we had from the forum that I had circulated anywhere earlier. One of them is about time management. And once you have figured out what it is that you're trying to do, and once you have gotten hold of the material that will allow you to prepare effectively, how do you time manage and how do you sequence the journey through all this information to put you to the best level of preparation, so then you got the highest chances of actually attempting the SQE? Now, this, of course, will differ on whether you're self-studying or whether you have the support of a tutor or a prep school. If you're with a tutor or a prep school, the key part of their job is to create a timeline and a sequence of actions that you need to take in order to prepare. So advice and support on organization is going to be one of the key benefits of being together with a prep school or a tutor. So I'm going to focus here mostly on what you can do if you're preparing on your own, that you need to create these timelines and you need to create these boundaries and these milestones for yourself. Now, if you are self-studying and you are to an extent familiar with the content, because as we said, you've got an LLB or you just graduated or you're working in the legal domain already or you qualified overseas in similar content, then I would advise that you set aside 6 months minimum for SQE1 and another 6 months for SQE2. The volume of material, the unfamiliarity of the exam, and the need to go effectively through this content while you're juggling work, family responsibilities, travel, other things that you need to do in your life, I think it's going to be extremely challenging to do it in anything less than 6 months per examination. Now, perhaps if you're out of work or if you're taking a career break and you can devote yourself full time, day and night, to preparing for the SQE, then you might be able to get through it sooner. But for the average individual that is juggling multiple things and has multiple obligations, I would say 6 months for each is what I would advise. Now, if you can devote more time, absolutely take it, yes? But we're thinking about minimums here to allow people to benchmark. So what I've got in mind here is a sort of process where it takes you from study. So think of it as a triangle. It takes you from study, going through the substantive content in the material, going through the mock exams and so on, to engagement. So you start from study and then you go to engagement, which means you need to talk to somebody else. You cannot do this on your own. This doesn't mean that you need to hire a tutor, but you need to meet even through a Facebook group or through a WhatsApp group with other people who are going through a similar process. So you start with study, yes, but then very quickly you need to go down to this engagement bit. You need to join whatever online community of support you can find. And this has been the motivation behind me building the Facebook group, which it's got now like 3,600 people on it. Not all of them are taking the SQE. Some of them are bots, I'm sure. But there's still quite a lot of people in there who are genuine people seeking to support each other going through the exam. So I'm going to put a link to the Facebook group down in the description, and there's also a link kind of flying around in the chat there. So if you're not already members of my Facebook group, I would encourage you to do this. So start with study. Go to community and engagement with other people to have a community of support. And then the other part we've got is reflection. So you need to take some time for all this information to sort of percolate in your head. So you start remembering things, you start putting things together in a systematic manner. It is not simply study, 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 do mock exams like crazy, and then you're ready for the exam. I think you need all these three elements in this pyramid to allow you to effectively prepare for what's going on. Study, past exam papers, mock exams, samples, then community support, talk with other people who are going through the same process, then reflection and giving yourself the time for this information to come in and synthesize, and then going back to study. So you've got this pyramid, but then you end up going around in a loop, spending, as I recommended, at least 6 months on each part of the exam. And then you're sort of building up your capacity as you're getting close to it. Now, this isn't a process that we're used to. If you're a recent graduate, your undergraduate law degree or whatever undergraduate degree you took is nothing like this, because we now don't assess people through exams. We assess people through coursework. We don't have like a single make or break event in their assessment schedule. So unfortunately, even though academic practice has moved away from this sort of one-off examination, the SQE reintroduces this for our colleagues who are trying to become solicitors. So it is a significant change of mind frame. Even if you're used to study, even if you have just come out of study, it will require this very significant jump to the mentality that has you assessed on a single event, this one big exam. Now, having this kind of rough time frame in mind, we can think about how we're actually going to sequence it and go through it. Say that you're using the books from our sponsor here. So you got all the books from the Revised SQE series. There are around 15 books in this series. If you spend a week on each one of those books, then we're already talking about 15 weeks of continuous engagement. The study subjects in FLK, that is the SQE1 content, are the black letter law subjects. And then you have to anticipate what's going to come in SQE2, which is talking about the practice areas. And how do you actually take this information and operationalize it so you're ready for SQE2. Now, clearly, anybody who's going through the SQE process is not only thinking about passing SQE1 and not thinking forwards. It probably is a better idea to anticipate what's going to happen in SQE2. So for that reason, it might be a good idea, as you're going through the content in these books, to go through the black letter law bits and then follow on with the practice bits. So if you're thinking about the substantive content and then you have the associated practice area and you read them in sequence, I think it's going to help to embed the knowledge, even though you're not immediately taking SQE2. And to be honest, you shouldn't. If you pass SQE1, I think you should give yourselves a little bit of a break to recover and then book yourselves on to do SQE2, because doing them sequentially might be a little bit too difficult. Now, we've already said that before you've paid a penny and purchased anything, you should download absolutely everything you can find from everybody that is offering you mocks and examples and information and anything for free. Get all of that stuff. As you're going through your revised SQE titles, as you're going through information on the associated practice areas, you should be attempting the tests not only from what's embedded in these books, not only from what's embedded in the SQE, on the revised SQE FLK test books. You should be attempting the questions from everybody. And that's why I said you should make a folder by provider, perhaps, or by topic, and stick there all the MCQs and all the other practice questions that you can find. And then as you're going through the material, bombard yourself with the practice questions. While you're doing this, and that's why my pyramid has study, community, reflection, you should be engaged with your community. Try and find other people that are going through the same process. Real people, because I have to fight the bots and the scammers and all the rest of it of my Facebook group on a daily basis. So don't get suckered into giving your email and giving your phone number to kind of random people online that pretend to have information about the exam. Meet and communicate with people who are genuine candidates that are going through the same process as you. So you can create a community of support. Even if you don't get to study together or exchange material, just knowing that there are other people going through the same hassle at the same time is going to be invaluable. And so you've done all these things, you set yourself time aside, you've have gotten hold of the material that you need to study, you've made yourself a study plan with milestones as to what you should be reading and when, and you have a sort of realistic time frame as to how long it's going to take you to go through a book. Do you need 1 week? Do you need 2 weeks? Do you need 10 days? You need to game this a little bit and think about it. And as you're going through all of this, make sure you don't go crazy and you stay healthy and you keep an eye on your mental health, your anxiety levels, and all the rest of it. So make sure that you sleep, make sure that your diet is appropriate, make sure that you exercise. If you need to take vitamins and supplements and so on, go for it. Top up your vitamin C. Take regular breaks, take the opportunities to go out. And as you're going to the part of the pyramid that I mentioned, the reflection, do this reflection outside. Go for a nice walk, go cycling, go to the gym, meet friends on occasion that have got nothing to do with this process, go see family. You need to be able both to focus on the study and also to detach from the study so it all does not become overwhelming. Quite a lot of the discussion that we're having with candidates that are going through this and through interactions in our Facebook group and so on is about how to manage stress and anxiety related to taking an exam. It is going to be a horrible, stressful thing to do. And as I told you already, it is so horrible and so stressful because we are actually not used to these types of assessment processes anymore. And I don't know what to tell you as an educator that I teach a great deal of students at undergraduate level. I don't know whether we've moved on in our practice to focus on skills, to focus on other things we're trying to achieve, and we're not really giving people these kind of stressful sit down for 10-hour type of assessments that I used to have when I was younger. But unfortunately, even though this works for study and the dissemination of knowledge and the build-up of skills, it really doesn't work for the poor people who are trying to prepare for the SQE, because the SQE in terms of pedagogy is such a step back. So be prepared for it to be unfamiliar, stressful, and difficult. And on top, it's also ridiculously expensive because you have to spend money on getting the resources. I mean, even though, our sponsors today are the most cost-effective way to do this, but if you're getting additional resources, if you're getting resources from other people, if you're getting yourself tuition, if you sign on to an SQE preparation school, all these things are expensive on top of the enormous cost of signing up for the exams themselves. So you have to think about yourself and your mental well-being as you're going through that process. You need to have realistic expectations as to what you can achieve. In the same way that back in the day, you were preparing for your A levels or baccalaureate or university or, school leaving examinations. You might have thought, I'm going to wake up at 6 in the morning and study all the way till 6 in the evening. Yeah, you might have wanted to do this, but it's not physically possible. And then when you need to take a break, you shouldn't feel guilty about it and you shouldn't beat yourself up about it. So perhaps the closest thing that we do have is the experience of final school exams. So this brings you back full circle to when you were leaving school, hoping to go into university and stressing about that sort of thing. This is now a more similar process. So be prepared for the fact that it's going to be difficult. Be prepared for the fact that you need to consider your well-being and give yourselves the breaks when you need them and a pat on the back when you've done well. So you are allowed to also celebrate achievements and you're about to celebrate meeting your milestones, even if it is something that's entirely controlled by you. So if the deal was that I started on Monday saying that I would have read this by Friday and I've done it, then yes, this is something that you should be happy about and celebrate it and, go out and have a latte or something and have a nice muffin and say that you've done it. So you need to give yourselves these opportunities to progress through this entire long process. Now, the unpleasant stuff. What is going to happen if you fail? And I know nobody wants to think about failure when they're setting out to prepare for something, but it does on occasion happen. So a lot of people fail the SQE and they haven't done anything wrong. There are people who have spent ages preparing, who have gotten the materials that they needed, who had put the effort that they should have put, that had followed all best practice advice from everybody, and they still fail. It unfortunately happens because this is a very difficult, very unfair exam. And I am in contact with candidates who have actually done everything the way they should and they still failed. If you see the success statistics, pretty much half the people who attempt the SQE1 fail. Rates are a little bit better from SQE2, but perhaps it's sort of the velocity of a survivor, that if you've gone through one part, then you're a little bit better prepared for what comes next. But failure is possible. Failure happens to a great deal of people. What does that actually mean? SQE1 consists of two parts. You get examined on FLK1 and FLK2 separately. So it is possible that you pass one of the FLKs, but not the other. I wanted to tell you this because I wasn't sure that this is fully appreciated. SQE2, on the other hand, is a single assessment. Even though it's got two parts, it's got the oral and the written part, you only get 1 mark for the whole of SQE2. So unfortunately, if you fail overall in SQE2, then you need to retake everything, the oral and the written. Now, what are the time frames for this? They give you 3 attempts. Now, what does that mean? If you fail SQE1, so you fail FLK1 or you fail FLK2 on your first attempt, then you will have 2 further opportunities to take the assessments, whichever one it is that you fail. If you fail equally, if you failed SQE2 in your first attempt, you have another 2 opportunities. So there are 3 overall opportunities to take these exams within any 6-year time frame. So this is to make things worse. Not only you've got all this, but you've also got the clock ticking. The time block for passing the exams is always 6 years. So you have 6 years within which to go through this process and succeed in SQE1 and SQE2. And you have 3 attempts in each. Now, what happens if you fail 3 times? Then you need to wait till the end of the 6-year period before you can retake. And they don't keep any of your successful results up until that point. So unfortunately, if say you passed FLK1 and you failed FLK2 and then you cannot proceed and you tried again and again, then if you maxed out your attempts, you're going to have to wait for the 6-year period to end to re-enroll to take the exams. But at that point, you're going to have to retake FLK1 as well. I know it sounds horrible, but this is how they've set it up. Remember also that you cannot take, the clock starts always from the first day that you sit your first assessment. So that's when the 6 years start counting. And just in case anybody had this crazy idea, you cannot retake the exam to improve your marks. Right? I'm just putting this out there. I mean, nobody in their right minds would want to retake the exam simply to improve their marks. And I haven't heard of the mark having any consequence. The important thing is that you pass. I haven't heard of anybody putting conditionality for a training contract or a job or anything else on the level at which you pass. Now, by the way, if you are wondering about what's going to happen for all of these things, you have adequate information on the SRA's website. And there is a little bit of a chance that minor things change left and right. So if you had downloaded this information at the start of the process, like a year or 2 ago, make sure that you revisit the SRA website for information, because if they have changed something, then you might need to know. You want an example of things changing? The booking process. Do we have anybody in the chat right now that is suffering from trying to book the exam? What a nightmare this has been. So again, this is me leaning into my propensity to complain about stuff. But honestly, guys, the booking system for the SQE has been so problematic for so long that I genuinely think it is worth complaining about. So because Kaplan, who are the people running the exam, had such great difficulty matching demand with available spaces in the past, they're trying to tweak the booking process every year and to do something slightly different. Now, what they have done this time is to offer a sort of pre-registration option, which the dates for this have passed already. So, don't freak out. There's nothing for you to do right now. But people would pre-register, then there would be some sort of pre-allocation from within the system, and people who pre-registered would be contacted and offered the place. And then they have the opportunity to accept and book the place or ask for an alternative. I think this is what they had to do to reduce the ridiculous situation that we had on the previous SQE1 sitting, where people would be waiting on a queue, on an online queue to be able to book, and then the thing would crash and they would need to rejoin the queue. And when they called, they would need to spend 7 hours waiting to talk to the call center. So this really worked poorly, if I can put it politely, on the previous sitting of the SQE. Hopefully, this pre-booking process is going to work right now. If you guys are going through this and you want to share your experience, I would love to know how this went. So feel free to put a message in the comments that you're going to have after we publish the video and it's available on the replay. Also, feel free to share your experience with other candidates in the Facebook group. There've been a lot of desperate people out there trying to get information as to what's going on. I really hope that it's going to get a little bit better. Now, on the chance that we have some people in our group today or listening on the replay that are not entirely familiar with what we're talking about, I just wanted to give you like a brief update or a brief recap of what the SQE is about and what it is that you need to do in order to prepare. Now, the SQE consists of two assessments, SQE1 and SQE2. These are examined in bizarre and unfamiliar ways. So SQE1 consists of two assessments, each of which has 180 multiple choice questions. Yes. So when I introduced multiple choice questions for my final year undergraduate module at the university, everybody told me, these are law students. These are people who are supposed to know stuff at depth and to have the ability to demonstrate skills and all of that stuff. And you're going to examine with a multiple choice question. And I said, precisely, because this is what is going to prepare my students for the SQE that is coming up. Is this the best way to check knowledge and skills? Absolutely not. But it is the way that the regulator has chosen to do it. So SQE1, two assessments, 180 multiple choice questions in each assessment. Each of these assessments, FLK1, FLK2, they call them, is sat on separate days. And in each day, each day is split in two. So you basically set two sessions of 2 hours and 33 minutes each with 90 questions in each session. You do this for FLK1, and you go back, you do this for FLK2. If you're preparing for the July sitting, all this is going to happen for the SQE1 July 2024 sitting between the 15th of July and the 26th. And after that, we can all go on holiday because we're going to need it. What is the knowledge content that you need to address, and the knowledge content that the revised SQE books are going to help you cover? SQE1 deals with what they call functioning legal knowledge in the subjects of business law and practice, dispute resolution, contract and tort, contract being my favorite, legal system, constitutional and administrative law, EU legal services. FLK2 is dealing with property practice, wills and administration of estates, solicitors' accounts, land law, trusts, criminal law and procedure, and within all of this, you've got the topic of ethics and professional conduct, because this is pervasive across the entire examination. So effectively, this is the totality of the content of what one would address if you were doing an undergraduate law degree or the GDL, which is the graduate diploma in law, and it's all in there for you. and they're asking people to do this all by themselves because they don't require a law degree. Did you guys know this? Put in a shocked emoticon in the chat if you didn't know this. You don't need a law degree in order to sit the SQE. You need a higher education qualification, either from the UK or overseas, and this is sufficient. It does not need to be a law degree. So the logic behind this is that this is going to broaden access to the legal profession. Aha, okay. I don't think it broadens access to the legal profession if you're asking people to do the totality of the content of what would be in a degree by themselves, does it? But hey, again, we're going to do a complaining live stream where we actually spend the entire hour complaining about stuff. Would you guys like to join this one? If you want a complaining live stream, leave me a message down in the comments, and I'm gonna set one up when I'm gonna be whining and complaining nonstop for the entire hour. But back to the topic of what is covered in the SQE. So we just went through the knowledge content that is examined in SQE 1. Now, the knowledge content that is examined in SQE 2 is a little bit different because this is all the practical lawyery skills. You have two assessments within SQE 2, the oral exam and the written exam. They are, as I said, completed within the same assessment window, and they receive a mark in totality. That's why we were saying earlier that it's not possible that you pass the oral and you fail the written, or vice versa. You need to pass the totality of SQE2 to be able to progress. So the assessments in the oral part of SQE2 are interview and attendance note and legal analysis and advocacy. SQE2 takes place over 2 half days. So the candidates have an examination of the 4 oral legal skills assessments. What are those? They get assessed on advocacy, for dispute resolution, for criminal litigation, and then interview and attendance and legal note analysis for property practice, wills and intestacy, and probate administration practice. So this, obviously, the content here deviates from what you have done from SQE1, but there are commonalities. That's why I said when you're going through the books and preparing, perhaps it makes sense to think ahead on SQE2, and after you've done the substantive content, to do some of the practical stuff one after the other, so it's all fresh in your mind. Now, this was the oral part that I just described. What about the written part? In the written part of SQE2, you've got case and matter analysis, legal research, legal writing, legal drafting. Again, SQE2, the written part takes place over 3.5 days, and you have a total of 12 written skills assessments. The exercises that you're going to have to face are covering similar content as the oral one. So you've got dispute resolution, criminal litigation, property practice, wills, probate administration, business organization rules and procedures. Again, the ethics part pervades what's going on, so you might have ethics-related issues arising in the context of any of these assessments. So to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, SQE1, the totality of the substantive content of what one would find in the law degree. SQE2, the totality of the skills that a lawyer needs to demonstrate on their first day in practice. That's why they call these day one outcomes. Now, is any of this stuff realistic? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so, but this is how the system has been set up. In practical terms, this means that you have to know everything as if you had done a law degree, and then you had moved on to the LPC, which used to be the legal practice course that people took as a precondition to applying as solicitors. Now, after all of this presentation, you're probably sufficiently traumatized and you're thinking, oh my God, for those of you who haven't already booked into this, you must be thinking, why would I put myself through this? And is there anything else that I could do? The answer is no, there isn't anything else that you can do if you want to become a solicitor. Technically, people who had begun their law degree up until 2021, they can still qualify using the old system, which meant that you completed a qualifying law degree and then you did the legal practice course and then you got yourselves a training contract and then you qualified as a solicitor. So if you are an oldie like me that graduated before 2021, technically the route is still available for you. Practically, you shouldn't do it. The reason is, and I've made a video discussing the differences between the LPC and the SQE and offering some advice. I'm going to link that down in the description as well, that you can watch later. The reason why you shouldn't do it is because it has become impossible to find a training contract. And if you're looking at the big law firms, the Magic Circle law firms, big law firms around London and so on, most of them are now only offer qualifying work experience, as they call it now, or the training contract for those who use the old terminology. They only offer this opportunity for the people who've gone through the SQE route. So the problem is that if you went through the old pathway and you did the LPC, you risk not being able to find a training contract, which then leaves you into this limbo of being half qualified. And unfortunately, I know of people who already have the LPC, but they need to take the SQE on top, so then they qualify under the SQE route. So depending on your circumstances, your location, your target firm, because not London is not the whole of the UK. It might be possible to qualify in other places in England and Wales as a solicitor, and there might be other options available to you. And there might be law firms on the local level that still offer training contracts and prefer the LPC candidates, right? I mean, I don't know everything. But for my experience and to the extent of the discussions that I had with candidates already, it is safer to go through the SQE route. So if you have joined us at this late stage, you can wait for the video to appear on the replay and you can watch the whole thing again, or go through the various videos that I've got on my YouTube channel and try and find information on what the SQE is and what to do. Now, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope that this session was useful. It was lovely to have people live watching this as I'm presenting it and to have some interaction in the chat and some kind of feedback on the technical aspects. So it was really awesome having you guys here. I hope we continue this discussion in the comments that we're going to have under the video soon. And we also have the chance to discuss in the Facebook group. If you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, please do so. There's going to be information on how to do this down in the description. And I'm sending people discount codes, study tips, all sorts of things through the newsletter. So it would be great to see you there as well. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoy. If you're not in London when it's raining, I hope you enjoy the rest of this bank holiday, Monday, and I'll see you again soon.